Hey guys, what's going on? James here from Embark, and today I have got a introduction to the concept of negotiation. So I read Getting More by Stuart Diamond back in 2015, and I think the book came out in maybe like 2010, 2011, something like that. Now, I can't go into all of Stuart's accolades because there are so many. So I'm going to link his Wikipedia in the description below. You can click through and just do a little read up of who he is to see the man behind the book and why he's such a ridiculously good negotiator. I will give you a little bit of an introduction. So Stuart Diamond is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. He's an attorney. He is an entrepreneur and he's a professor. He's been teaching negotiation for about 20 years at Wharton Business School. The book was on 2011 New York Times bestsellers list, and for the past 8 years they've been using this book to teach employees at Google. So the book outlines that there are 6 negotiation techniques, so let's have a look at those now. So number 1 is be dispassionate. Emotions destroy negotiations. Number 2, prepare and collect your thoughts, even if it's just for a few seconds. Number 3, find the decision maker. Number 4, focus on your goals and not who's right or wrong. 5, make human contact. Interact with humans on a deep level. And finally, acknowledge the other party's position and their power. Emotions and perceptions are far more important than power and logic when it comes to negotiations. The book also includes 12 major strategies for negotiation, so we'll quickly go through those too. So, goals are paramount. It's about them. You can't persuade people unless you know what's going on in their head. Make emotional payments. When people are being irrational, there is no listening to you. There's no availability to persuade them. You have to be empathetic to them. Every situation is different. There's no one size fits all approach. Incremental is best. People often fail because they're asking for too much in one go. Trade things you value unequally. Find things that the other party want that you don't need, and you can offer them that for leverage. It's a win-win. Find their standards. What are their policies? What are their precedents? Use that in the negotiation. Be transparent and constructive. Do not try and manipulate people. Be yourself. Always communicate. State the obvious. Frame the vision. Most negotiations go bad if there's a lack of communication. Find the real problem and make it an opportunity. Embrace differences. Differences are profitable. Differences lead to creativity. And lastly, prepare. Make a list and use it. So there's a few key strategies and things to think about when you're looking at negotiation. And now I just want to have a quick look at understanding people and why that's important. So to negotiate is to understand people. There's a really good reason why I'm using that statement. Having at least basic knowledge in personality types and psychology is going to help you tenfold when it comes to negotiations. People are everything, and rightfully so. They are the decision makers, the compromisers, the deal makers, and even with the advancements on technology, they're still normally the people that sign the document at the end of the day. You're always going to have to deal with people, and you're always going to have to deal with their emotions. The characteristic of the person or the people that you are negotiating with are going to dominate every aspect of that negotiation. Before you even think about gender, religion, culture, or anything like that, the most important thing to know is the picture inside their heads on that day. Someone having a bad commute that day could spell disaster for your negotiations. Before you start any discussions, you have to take out your emotional and situational thermometer and find out what's going on in that person's head. When I ran a small property investment firm, the first thing that I did on the day was I would call up the agent, and before I'd make an offer or a counter offer, I would ask them, how's your day going? Or how are you? This would give me normally pretty much all the information I need to know about how receptive they're going to be to my offer. And this is super important. So once I know that, I can then either email or speak to them right there and then, depending on how their mood is. And it depends how cheeky I can be with an offer. If they've had a good morning, I'll probably tell them that I'm going to ping them over an offer or an email real shortly, and for them to get back to me whenever it's convenient. This is contrary to how most people operate when negotiating. Traditionally, people focus on what they want, their agenda, their needs, not focusing on the other person, and time again, displaying respect to the other person always yields better results in negotiations. And studies actually confirm this also, showing that when agreements are reached, 55% of those agreements are based on the people being courteous and respectful to the other party. And if they act that way, they can build trust, and the other party is more likely to listen. Understand the people and get more from every negotiation. Remember, you can't persuade anyone if they're not listening. A historical and controversial trial highlights this important aspect of negotiation. O.J. Simpson was on trial for a double homicide, and there was a huge amount of DNA evidence stacked against him, but he was found not guilty when everything was said and done. Despite it being relatively new, DNA was still one of the most important factors when it came to evidence in court. So how did he arguably get away with murder? Simply put, the prosecution fell on deaf ears. The jury did not like and did not trust the prosecutors, and therefore did not listen to the evidence, regardless of how overwhelming the evidence was. They just did not listen to it. And it might not have been a case that they didn't like the prosecutor. It was more a case of they did like the defendant, O.J. Simpson. In fact, Marcia Clark, the lead prosecutor on the case, made this statement in an interview years later. The problem was the jury didn't want to believe, and so at the end of the day, you can't make someone believe something they don't want to believe. So despite the defendant being in a terrible position with regards to the DNA evidence, they won the case. And the way they did this was they won over the decision makers. And at the end of the day, that's all negotiating is. It's winning over the decision makers. Negotiating is an incredible skill to have, and one that you should practice and hone as a skill, not just for property negotiations like my previous example, but for everyday interactions as a whole. So whether you're trying to negotiate on the sale of a house, or the price of a car, or even a new pair of shoes, remember you're always negotiating. If you're trying to get a raise at work, or you're just having a discussion with your significant other, at times you're always going to be negotiating. The sooner you look at the conversations that you have with people and realise that nearly everything's a little bit of a negotiation, you'll realise how important it is to be proficient in the art of negotiation. So that's it from me, guys. It's just a little introduction to negotiation. I didn't want to go into too much depth. If you want me to do that, then please comment below. I might do a small series on it, going into more into depth on each different part of negotiation as a whole. But other than that, please like the video if you did enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. I've been James for Embark, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.